If you're a single woman over 40 looking for Mr. Right and you're ready to learn practical dating strategies that don't waste your precious time, you're in the right place. In this episode, as an intuitive love coach, I'm talking about red flags in dating in a way that actually stops you from chasing unavailable guys. So let's get started. Welcome to this episode on how to recognize Mr. Unavailable and talk about the red flags. So we're going to talk about what a red flag is, how to recognize it, and what to do about it. And I'm breaking down all the things today, not to scare you, but to give you the information so that you can be empowered and intentional about your dating. That's what I'm all about. And I've been told by many women over the years as a love coach, and I've personally gone through this in my single days before I met my amazing husband. We know when the guy is unavailable. We know that they don't have potential, but we keep chasing after them. That's a fact. So let's just acknowledge that right now. We're not dumb. We're not, oh my God, I had no idea. You know, in order to fully change a pattern, you have to face it head on. Say it out loud with me. I get involved with unavailable guys and I know I'm doing it. See how freeing that is? Because now you can move forward. And there's no judgment, there's no harm, there's no shame. We just move on from here in a more intentional and empowered way, like I said before. And there's probably perfectly reasonable explanations of why you're doing this. Maybe it's your childhood. Maybe the father figures you didn't have, or the bad father figures that you had. Maybe you have the urge to change them or change men in a way that feels almost compulsive, and that's codependency. Whatever it is perfectly reasonable why you're doing this. But it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. As one of my mentors says, it doesn't mean you have to take the hit, figuratively. And remember to listen to the episode before this one on green flags, because I also want you to be focused on what you want, as well as recognizing who you want. So this is just, they kind of go together. The red flags and the green flags, you need to have both, have all the information to be an empowered dater after 40. That's just what it's all about. I want to go into a mindset piece right now and kind of talk about the difference between the last episode and this one. Unlike with Mr. Right, when it comes to someone who's unavailable, you can pretty much tell right away. Whereas in the other episode, I said it may take a little bit of time to be like, hey, this guy is really the one for me. But when it comes to an unavailable guy, they pretty much make themselves known right away. And that's why I was saying, calling everyone out, calling you out, calling myself out. I used to do this. I knew full well what I was doing. So what you need to do to shift the pattern, stop making excuses for the guy, saying it'll be different once he does X, Y, Z, or trying to fill in the blanks of what he's doing. No, we have to face that's who he is. He's not available. So the mindset piece is a willingness to see this guy for who he is and say, enough is enough. I'm done with chasing these unavailable guys. And remembering that there are plenty of fish in the sea, that there is an abundance of choices. And make a commitment to yourself that you are focused on finding the right guy for you. And when I say Mr. Right or the right guy, what I mean is someone who is fully available to you. They're showing up fully. And yes, they may be a work in progress, but they are showing up and being themselves. And that's all we can really ask of ourselves or anyone else. And anything short of that is not what you deserve. So I have some affirmations for this part of the mindset that you can just say to yourself out loud. Later on, if you want to write them down, you can have them in your back pocket. First one is, I deserve lasting, dedicated love. I deserve lasting, dedicated love. I am available for an equal, give and take relationship. I am available for an equal give and take relationship. I am worthy of true love. I am worthy of true love. I am willing to let this pattern of chasing unavailable guys go. I'm willing to let this pattern of chasing unavailable guys go. All right, there you go. So now that we've got our mind in the right place, let's talk about emotions. So what are the emotions that you feel when you're around this unavailable guy, when you're dating someone who's unavailable to you? And this is not, this will bring up your emotions about yourself. And that's why I want to bring the focus back to the guy, because this is not about you, but we tend to take it on and make it mean something about ourselves. So what are your emotions that you're feeling? Some examples might be shame, fear. You've got anxiety, like, is he ever going to call? Why did he ghost me? Self-doubt. Maybe I'm just not lovable. I'm not dateable after this age, after 40. You feel ignored maybe, or dismissed, angry, frustrated. Maybe you start getting obsessed with this guy and you want to make him love you and you want to make him show up for you. And there's a feeling of being obsessed with that. And that's something I used to do all the time. So where does that show up in your body? Do you have a tight neck? Is your stomach all scrunched up? A lot of times we'll carry a lot of tension and emotions in our legs, our upper thighs. And so what are my physical and emotional signs when I'm dating someone who is unavailable? This is your body giving you the red flags. It's pretty much handing you the red flag on a platter. All you have to do is say, okay, this is what's happening, and just embrace it and move on. So that's a perfect segue for the action that we take when we have this realization early on, and I'm talking first date, second date in. Practical ways to deal with this guy who's unavailable, who's not going to show up for you. And, you can throw away, remember the mindset piece, you can throw away he was having a bad day, or just, maybe a couple dates in when we feel more comfortable, he's going to open up, or da-da-da-da-da-da-da. No, we're going to go with, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Next, let's move on. Next. So practical ways to deal with this guy is, if you get a strong feeling on your first date, he's already made you work for it. He's late. He's on his phone. He seems distracted. He doesn't ask you questions. He seems to have one foot out the door. That's a huge red flag right there. So one thing you can do is don't schedule a second date, even if he asks. You can say, it was great to meet you, but I'm going to keep looking, and good luck with your search. It was really nice to meet you. Number 2, don't give him your contact information. If you're feeling like you already have to really work for this guy and try really hard to get his attention, you definitely don't want to start playing the game of texting and ghosting and texting and ghosting. That's just a horrible thing altogether that you want to avoid. And third thing you can do as a practical thing is leave the date early. Like, I'm very sorry, but I need to cut this short. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and evening. You don't have to give an explanation. Nobody who has just met you is going to be like, why? Why are you leaving? Like most guys will be like, oh, okay, whatever. Like they may be a little bit, their egos might be hurt. But that's another red flag. If someone starts grilling you, is why are you leaving? You'll be like very sure of your decision after that. If you do go on a second date, because sometimes we get into this thing where it's like, well, I'm not sure. I really need to make sure, because what if he turns out to be an amazing guy and I blew him off on the first date just because I thought it was wrong? I would say 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get it wrong, because when you're tuned into your intuition, when you are connected to your body, you understand your emotional landscape, you know what it feels like. Your body, your intuition, everything is going to be telling you and giving you a million signals, and you're not going to miss out. There's a huge amount of FOMO sometimes, like especially after 40, where you're like, but there's no guys out there really. Like I have to really, make sure every single one is, really go through a whole process before I let them go. No, that is a mindset issue. That's a scarcity thing. That's trying to make something work that's not going to work. And that's why we get into these situations and you end up wasting time, months and maybe years of your life with people that you have to chase after because you're like, but I had to really make this work. Or, I don't want to miss out. What if he turns out to be the one and we ride off into the sunset? And again, I understand these things. I'm not saying them from a place of judgment. I understand what it feels like to have that kind of hope, but it's the other side of hope. It's like that desperation, and not that I'm saying it's pathetic. It's like you really, really, really want to make it work. And that's all. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it can be very, it has a lot of pitfalls if you do that. If you go down that road, there's just a lot of painful experiences when you can just move on to the next guy and you can move into more of an abundant, hopeful space and say, hey, there's lots of guys who would love to be with me and ones who are going to show up. And if they can't show up in the first date, if they can't show up in the second date, being on your best behavior, then wow, they are not going to be worthy of my love and my attention. So I'm going to move on. And that's the space you really want to be in. So let's move into an exercise of really dialing into what are the red flags and how you can figure out your red flags, because everyone has their own. First way I want you to do this is a little exercise. You can kind of just tune in to yourself and find the answers, or you can always, pause this if you're at home and take down some notes or do that. But you can do this just as an internal exercise where you're tuning into yourself right now. I want you to list or just figure out what are the 5 main characteristics or traits of your unavailable guy. You're Mr. Unavailable. Because everyone has their deal breakers. Everyone has their own specific triggers that really stand out and are your deal breakers. So you want to capture the top 5 and you're looking at the guy's personality. So for example, he's sort of an angry type of person or a dismissive person or closed off or distracted or defensive or arrogant. So it's a personality trait that is an overarching kind of thing that you would say, oh, wow, he seems like a very defensive type of person. And I think you know what I'm saying. So think about the 5 deal breakers in that aspect of his personality. And we're looking at the unavailable archetype guy for you. Second, I want you to think about the 5 behaviors or actions of your unavailable guy that's really triggering for you and is a massive deal breaker. So for example, he's late. He cancels his plans at the last minute with you. He's rude to the waiter. He brags and boasts about himself. He always, in conversation, maybe blames everybody else for all his life problems. These are some big red flags. And of course, everyone's going to have their own turnoff. And this is going to be very obvious to you. So it's the top 5 things that would be a very obvious deal breaker and turn off for you. Now we're going to look at the feelings. So this is the most important part. Like I said before, your body and your intuition is going to be sounding off the alarm bells big time for you. So you don't even have to really do anything. It's your awesome GPS system towards true love, towards a lasting, dedicated love. And so when your body and your intuition tunes into something and it's like, no, 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 that is your red flag for you right there. And so this is the most important thing because it's super eye-opening and not many people think about this, and no one, as far as I can see, is really teaching about this stuff. So how do you feel in your body when you see the guy pulling into your driveway? Maybe you know him, or, pulling up to the coffee shop, or when you say goodnight on the phone. And this is not how you feel about him, okay? It's how you feel in your body when you're around him or when you think about him. There's a huge difference, because when we get caught up in a sort of an unhealthy pattern where we're trying to chase after someone, we're trying to fix them, we're trying to make them into our Mr. Right, and they clearly aren't. There's a feeling in your body, and it's telling you this is not going to work. This is wasting your time. This is painful. This is hurting you. It's hurting your self-esteem. This is what your body and your intuition is telling you. And it's nothing to do with how you feel about him. Because interestingly enough, you can be feeling all these bad things or feeling uncomfortable and upset and all of that. But still, say if you thought, oh, how do I feel about him? I really, 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 I'm so attracted to him. I wouldn't say love, but it's like this almost obsession again. It's really wanting to be around him all the time, having this urge to talk to him. And that's how you feel about him. But it doesn't mean it's a good thing. We can get into all kinds of bonding with people that is not a healthy, good thing for you. And so you want to listen to how your body feels around the person, and not the sort of the fantasy that we can get into where we're like, oh, but I like him so much and he's so attractive and I feel this such a strong connection to him. I feel this soul connection to him. That is something different, and that's probably a whole other episode right there. But I want you to tune into what your body is trying to tell you right now. No, don't go in this direction. So we want to be very clear on that. So spend a lot of time on the feeling part and how you feel. That's really important. And now I want you to take all of these like characteristics, behaviors, your feelings about this archetype, or like the, representation of the worst of like the most obvious unavailable guy that you would just go running out of the coffee shop when you see him. And take all of those characteristics and things that we thought about and bring it together into a person or a persona. That's why I call it an archetype. It's like a collection of feelings and behaviors and personality traits that bring together the ultimate unavailable guy that you're like, ick. And you want to have that and remember that archetype, because when he starts to show up, you're going to be like, no, absolutely not. And so now you have your red flags. You've got an actual package that is much easier to recognize and, remember and tune into than just being like, well, I want him to be 6 feet tall and, dark hair or whatever it is. We're going way past that, because we need to have a very, very strong connection to what you want. So again, go back and listen to the green flags episode and really tune into that part. And then also having, this is absolutely what I don't want. This is my deal breaker. And having those two archetypes together side by side and being able to check in with yourself as you're dating. So now you're going to be much more prepared. You're going to be intentional. You're going to be empowered. You're going to have all these tools in your toolbox to go for a date and be like, I know exactly what's happening. And even if you fall back and say, well, I'll just go on a couple dates, and, you kind of go back a few steps, it's no big deal, because you have this this framework and this toolbox of the red flags and the green flags in your pocket, and you'll be able to move forward and stop wasting the time and energy that you have in the past. And again, it's okay to just let that go and say that was the past, and this is me moving forward, and this is how I want to move forward. So I'm super excited about this whole thing, and I hope this was helpful for you, because next week we're going to go into a new 3-part series on the best dating advice that I have for women over 40 based on my experience as a love coach and coaching for 15 years and my own personal journey meeting my husband after years of chasing unavailable guys myself. So you don't want to miss it. Be sure to tune in next week. And remember, love is closer than you think.